Welcome to the Nirvah podcast. And on the third episode, we have Dr. Ivani Pauli. So, Dr. Pauli, let's start with your roots. You grew up in a small town in the south of Brazil, where you are now actually visiting your family, where there was a hospital
Yeah.
where your dad worked, a school where your mom worked, a bakery, two
Yes.
roads, and you had three siblings. So,
Yes.
what was life like growing up for you?
It was beautiful. It was this kind of childhoods where there were no worries whatsoever. We just played. It was very playful. Um, these are my sweet memories. But also, I had in the beginning, I was like always very sick. It starts with my parents. They were farmers. I came from a legacy of farmers. So my ancestors were all farmers working with regenerative agriculture, like these big families. They came from Europe to populate the south of Brazil back in the 1840s. And they just colonized the area. They built their farms there, cultivated food for their families, and had always very good food, nutritious food without pesticides, and being always very conscious about the environment and working with it in harmony. And my parents, they were the first generation that actually left the farm for a city job. And my dad took a job at the hospital there, and he was the director, the ambulance driver, the X-ray person, like the do it all. And my mom, she was a teacher. She taught languages, so Portuguese, English, and German. And yeah, and when they moved to the city, it was like the beginning of the industrialization and food for children, they had access for the first time to a little bit more money, and were able to buy industrialized food. And doing so, they were thinking they were doing the best for me. But I started to get very sick when I was in my early years, and they didn't know why, because I was always weak and very prone to infections. And until one day, one woman came to my father when he was going to work, and she told him that he's feeding me in the wrong way. He should be going back to his roots, feeding me food that comes from his mom, which is still a farmer. And then he was like intrigued with that information, because he had no idea about the relationship of food and health at this point. And then he did it because he was desperate, because I was always sick. And he went to his mom and got rice that she was growing and harvesting beans and cow milk and maize as well, and all flowers that she was doing herself, and started to feed me with that food, like with more nutritious food, with what they grew up with. And I started to recover over the months, and I was never sick again. And then they just got like very interested in learning more about this relationship of food and health, and always my aunts, they were living here in the capital of Rio Grande do Sul as well. And they were always very nerdy about food, about natural medicine, stuff like that. So they paid for courses for us to learn more about it as well. And over the years, we just got like more knowledgeable about this relationship, and understanding better and having better nutrition at home. And yeah, this is how my relationship with food started in the early days.
Right. That's quite amazing. And when you initially started getting sick, were you ever put on medication as well? Did you go down that road before trying and fixing your food?
Not heavy medication because I didn't have like a very serious illness. I was always like very weak, like
Right.
weak and anemia. So I always had like anemia, and I was always like not feeling well, not being energized, not being able to play. So I didn't go down the road of medication, no,
Right.
at that point.
Okay. Right. That's fortunate in a way, I guess. Later on in life, you dive deep into molecular biology. And
Yeah.
what was it about that field that fascinated you? What drew you in?
I started to do biology to understand how life works and the relationships and the environment. It was always very, very dear to me. Like because I grew up in a very pristine part of the state at that point, and because of this relationship that my family always had, like with the environment, I wanted to study more and understand how it worked. And in the first semesters, I was very drawn to the molecular world because it gave me the foundation, like where things come from. This is always a thing, something that I always wanted to know, like the first things first, how things start. And the molecular biology gave me some answers there, and also sparked the curiosity about the relationships of food, environment. I saw common ground there, and wanted to understand how molecules interact with each other. And studying that, I understood that and learned that you can modulate those interactions, and like you could like play play like how to modulate all of that, like to reestablish health, for instance. So I always got my fellowships in drug discovery, and there the methodologies were very consistent and very robust to study these interactions of molecules and natural molecules, proteins, for instance, and enzymes, and the metabolic pathways that were important for pathogens, and also studying the biochemistry of the human body. So the pathways that we chose in the pathogens were not existing pathways that we had in our bodies. So the side effects of drugs were not detrimental to human health. So we could be very targeting only the parasites, and how to design molecules actually in the computer, using softwares there to design a molecule that fits perfectly into the parasite's enzyme, and then being able to turn that enzyme off and modulate diseases and reestablish health. That was very exciting for me, and I just went down this road during my scientific training.
Right. And is that what led you to working at in big pharma?
Exactly. And then I did my master's in cellular and molecular biology here in the South still, studying new treatments for tuberculosis. We were able to identify some molecules here that were effective against resistant strains. So got some patents filled there. And then I went to the University of São Paulo to study these approaches in a more deeper level. Did my PhD there, and through my PhD, I got a fellowship in the big pharma in Chicago called AbbVie, and there I was exposed to in vitro methodologies for the study of pharmacokinetics. So we studied the pharmacokinetics after for these molecules, and understand better how they interact with the human body, with the metabolism, and selecting better candidates to move forward the pipeline of drug discovery at that point for neglected tropical diseases like Chagas, malaria, and even HCV. And we were very lucky there. I did learn some in vitro techniques that saved the lives of animal models as well. So we brought this back to Brazil, and in a collaboration with the third sector with Drugs or Neglected Diseases Initiative from Switzerland, AbbVie, and the public university, University of São Paulo University. So also moving science here forward in the country.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing. And one thing that people say here in Sri Lanka is, so there's Ayurveda, which is the naturopathic medicine that comes from India, and the one
Mm-hmm.
in Sri Lanka is called Hela Vedakang. So
Mm-hmm.
that it's pretty much, it stems from Ayurveda, I think. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
100% sure, but people say that when it comes to these systems of medication, they always address the root cause, while the Western medication, it addresses the symptoms for any disease.
Right.
So in
Right.
terms of,
It takes into consideration the context, because Ayurveda takes into consideration the temperature. If you are in which season are you? Like it's winter, it's summer. What warms your organism? You know, like it relates. It's very contextualizing health and all aspects that involves health, and this is something that draw me to biology as well, and food systems. It's to make impact, you really have to understand the context where you are first, before there is no one size fits all, and context is extremely important. And Ayurveda is one of these therapeutic approaches that take context seriously into consideration, and I love that.
right. And in terms of, I'm pretty sure both of these have their pros and cons. There are some diseases that Western medicine is very good at addressing, and others
Mhm.
that Ayurveda is good at addressing. Why do you think there hasn't been combination of these two, where maybe you can do Ayurvedic treatment after taking a series of X-rays and scans that's available in Western medication? And why do you think there hasn't been a better bond of these two types of medication?
Yeah, it should be mainstream, right? But I think there is a huge movement where the combination of these therapies is happening. So when you like actually living in California, that's very clear there. The preventive medicine and lifestyle medicine is becoming huge there, and we see a very interchangeable way of treating patients, and also professionals being trained on a holistic approach, having also into consideration life medicine. And I think there is a tendency in the future of medicine is integrative. So there are some places where this is not mainstream yet, but that's the future for sure. There is huge movement in this direction.
Right. So you've experienced that during your time in California, like you've seen that
Yes.
in practice.
Yes, definitely.
Hey,
Definitely. Mhm.
yeah, I need to go to California and check this out. Maybe.
Yes, California is a very nice place. It's very interesting to live there because you have like all this spiritual living, you know, like a very important yogis and spiritual teachers came all the way from India to teach there. At the same time, we have the Silicon Valley with which is super high tech, innovative, and science based, fact based. It's a place. It's a truly magical place because it brings science like cutting edge science and cutting edge spirituality together in the same place. And because of that, there are also like scientific studies that are bridging this gap of science and spirituality, like explaining physiologically what happens in your body and when you have like spiritual practices like meditation, like prayer and stuff like that, explaining and analyzing physiologically what happens in your body when you have a consistent practice in these traditions as well. So bridging, like ancestry and future, and in the present, to build like when I went to study food systems in Hawaii, they had like this very cool teaching which is the mindset they have there, is to look at the past to build better ways towards the future. So looking at the past, what our ancestors learned, working very closely with nature, and adding what we know now based on science and technology, and build a future which combines both. So yeah, so looking into the future, building pathways where we combine the best from the past with the best from the present to thrive in the future.
Amazing. And in terms of your work and your experience, how did you transition from big pharma to sustainable crop protection? And what is the importance of this?
Right. So, yeah, I was always very curious about the big theme in my life when I look back is health, and bringing, reestablishing health, like paving the way for people to have better health, because I was sick when I was a child. And like based on my family realization that food has everything to do with, and lifestyle has everything to do with having this health and being strong. It's um it's that that's something that always was in the back of my mind. So when I went to do biology, I was fascinated by the micro world, by microbiology and molecular design, all of that. I wanted to be able to reestablish health rationally, like having the tools and modulating these interactions. That was very fascinating to me. And I did my scientific training there, because I always loved to study and research. So I did my master's, my PhD, and 2 years of postdoc as well. And going back to California, it was a very interesting like a reunion of everything that was dear to me and that was important to my life. And because of the urban agriculture, like the spirituality life there, and food came about very much. And my friends there, they were working with the microbiome, having the huge project of mapping Americans' microbiome at that point. So I was participating in these discussions as well. So putting everything together just made me um, rethink if I wanted to follow the drug discovery path, or explore other ways of bringing more health to the planet. And I wanted to make like more tangible impact somehow. I was studying also entrepreneurship there. I did took like some boot camps that were offered to the postdoctoral community there, and took my permaculture design course as well. So I was doing all of that at the same time, and it gave me a realization that maybe it was now time to work on the other side, officially on the other side of lifestyle, and avoiding people to get sick in the first place, instead of trying to fix the problem at the end of the line, where I was heading towards during my scientific training. So I just took a gap year After California, I saved money for traveling the world to understand how food was produced. I was in contact with the Future Food Institute, got their trainings, their boot camps in Japan and smart farms, and Iceland with smart oceans, and New York for smart cities. And then also got in touch with Thought for Food, work in innovation in food systems. So I was volunteering for them and then traveling with them to understand how food was produced and what was it all about. And also coming back to Brazil, I took like some trainings in agroforestry, went to the Amazon, and getting to know how food is produced here in my own country. And it was mind blowing to me. I was very excited there, and I wanted to like in the future to use my time and my efforts and what I have learned so far to accelerate innovation in this in this end of health. Like to boost health and to avoid sickness to happen. So that's what I've been doing since 2018. I took this gap year, and now I am the regional coordinator of Thought for Food activities here in Brazil, and working with the Future Food Institute still on boot camps. We did the digital boot camps during the pandemic years, and organizing now some chapters here in Latin America, and soon we are going to have a chapter here in the Amazon. So yeah, just trying to catalyze and being a catalyst for innovation here in Latin America, for instance, and translating this knowledge from enzymes. And like I always worked with I worked with enzymes, which are catalysts. They accelerate processes. So I took the learning from these molecules to be a catalyzer of change and innovation and mindsets here in Latin America, applying what I learned globally, like having always the global vision and applying it locally with startups here from the global south.
That's amazing. Yeah. And in terms of your childhood, you were born at the source. You lived in a farming community, and now
Mhm.
today most people are so far away from that. There are so many players in between, and so many stops the food makes before it gets to them. And in
Right.
this complicated food supply chain, what do you think are the most pressing problems that we have?
The most pressing problem for sure is traceability. And like there is a huge pressure for from consumers to know where their food comes from. And being in a globalized world, you, we know that our food comes from everywhere. And to make informed decisions like about food that is more sustainable, we need to know where it comes from. So traceability is one huge problem. And another huge one is food waste. Food waste is it's crazy how much food is wasted in our planet. If it was a country, it would be the third biggest emitter of CO2. And it's just crazy to think that one third of the food produced in the world is thrown away, and a billion people still suffer from hunger at the same time. It's a huge paradox to me. So this would be, yes. And it's related to one another, and also have like like a better understanding of how much food actually needs to be produced, and for it to get to people as well, like to localize markets better. And like it's there are so many problems, but I think the main ones are those.
Right. And in terms of, I guess, traceability and food waste, how do you see us addressing those problems in the most effective way?
Right. I've been participating in some discussions and systems innovation think tanks, and to solve the problem of food waste, we need localized markets. We need to be better on this part, and have circularity, and first of all, knowing how much food we need actually to produce. And then from this, traceability helps with that, to generate data and inform farmers how much food they need actually to produce, and having the sequence of like picking up at the right time. And that's mainly the problem for fresh produce. So picking at the right time, um, transporting it accordingly, in to store it properly too until it gets to the markets. And that, yeah, there are so many opportunities there for innovation, for things that don't work properly yet.
Right. And in terms of reintroducing the human species back into the environment in a similar way that you went back to the farm to address some of those ailments you had, how do we do that when it comes to food? How do we get average middle class people greater access to food that comes from closer to the source? How do we do that realistically?
Yes, it's the way we produce it, with the way we consume it. It's all about the first things first, is knowing where it comes from. Like you need to know, you need to know how food is produced in the first place to make informed decisions. And when we produce food right, with regenerative approaches, and do it in uh, together with nature-based solutions, then we can reintroduce ourselves into the environment, because we can rebuild forests, we can produce food in forests, and sequester carbon there. So having health in soil, building soil health, that all starts to reintroduce balance in the systems. So I like to this concept of reintroducing the human species back into nature by the way we produce and consume food, because it slowly starts to build back balance if we use the right approaches to produce food. And the right approaches to produce food are boosted by uh, knowledge of the consumer, to where when they know where food comes from, and they can ask for more sustainable foods in the shelves in the market. And this is given to us with traceability, so we can be reliable there too. And like this builds prosperity cycle that reestablishes balance between humans and the planet and everything. Like starting with food and fibers, for instance, which are produced also using farmland.
Right. Yeah, that's perfect. And you mentioned regenerative agriculture. So, what exactly is this, and why do more people need to know about it and start making this a practice?
Right. Regenerative agriculture is to use nature-based solutions. It's to work with the nature cycles. It's to reestablish the health in the soils, for the soils to capture carbon back, to know how the nutrient cycles work in the soil, to use different plants, building biodiversity back into the systems, because different plants have different roots reach into the ground, and they cycle nutrients back, like, and if you understand that, you can regenerate soils. By regenerating soils, you regenerate biodiversity, you bring back diversity of small organisms there, and then plants, and then animals, and then everything starts to organize itself again into balanced cycles. And this all happens with knowledge, with like, with us understanding biology, understanding how life works, understanding how cycles work, and working with them instead of against them.
That's awesome. That's something that'll be amazing to see. And even in Sri Lanka, you see some pockets of people trying to make this happen. And as you might have heard, in Sri Lanka recently, there was an effort by the government to grow 100% organic, and they tried to do this in a very short time span, in a realistic from a realistic point of view. And in your opinion, based on all of the experience that you have, is this possible? Is it possible to go 100% organic for an entire nation?
No, because, like, if you observe cycles, we didn't come to this point at once, and we are not going to return at once. And knowing how life works, life has cycles. There has to be a certain set of nutrients there for life to be able to thrive, and then a certain amount of organisms for other organisms to thrive. It's cycles, it's interactions, it's everything, and everything takes time. And if we don't observe this time frame, this if we don't consider nature, we that's not how nature works. There is no, like, from one point to the next without having process. There needs to be a process, and life has a process too. So we cannot go back entirely into organic from the night to the day, because there are organisms that are there, that are used to chemicals. And for them to be able to for plants to be able to grow there in a balanced way, it has to be removed from portionate, like, from portion to portion. Is like, when you are a drug addict, you don't stop from night to day, from one day to the other. There is a process of cleansing, and if you don't observe that, you can get into trouble. So nature works in the same way.
Right. Yeah, that's really good to know. And in terms of your experience with regenerative agroforestry in Amazonia, can you tell us more about the exchange of knowledge between the experts in agroforestry and the indigenous leaders during that time? And what were those discussions like? What was it like for you to see those ideas being exchanged, almost like the old and the new trying to meet in the present?
Right. It was very beautiful to see there, because we have, like, indigenous leaders joining us, and having agroforestry leaders as well there, like, with the academic knowledge. And it was interesting to see the exchange there, because indigenous people knew by experience what academics knew by studying, and exchanging there. Again, like, the indigenous people, they bring context, they bring experience, they bring years, decades, millennia, from knowledge, from being there, working the land, and observing patterns, which is very important to be able to innovate as well, to observe these patterns and observe opportunities for change. And everyone, like science coming together with traditional knowledge, a third thing arises, which, like, it's very powerful. And there is actually where we need to come together with context, with people that live there, bringing what we learned into the walls of our laboratories, and here actually listen to these people and exchange, because they are open to talk to us. And if we are open to listen to them, we can go beyond imagination, like we can build real solutions for the real world, solutions that actually work on the field and are not only beautiful ideas that don't fructify because like nobody uses them. And having this exchange, knowing how to deal with communities, knowing how to deal with human emotions, like bringing people to your side as a scientist, as an innovator. That's what we need to do. That's where we need to head for change to be actually materialized and scale. So there is all of that into play as well.
Right. And how do you envision the future of our global food and agriculture industry? And what role do you see yourselves playing in it?
Right. What I see, it all comes to interaction. It all comes to networking and finding better ways of working together. Because I see industry, I see corporates willing to do good, and they have the resources. And I see um, traditional people with their solutions willing to interact with scientists, willing to interact with industry, sharing knowledge as well. They want to be heard too. And I see a willingness and a necessity of scientists to come out of the laboratories as well, to build businesses out of their knowledge. And direction I see there, this is the way to go, going somewhere and first understanding what's happening there, observing, and then having people, all the key stakeholders together to build solutions for their specific problems. Like with the global, what do we need to do globally? Globally is to reduce CO2 emissions. It's to increase biodiversity. Okay, we know as a whole, in the big picture, we need to reach there. But in your community, what can you do? Reduce waste, and in your fridge, like go into your fridge and see what you can do there, to waste less food. I think it's bridging the gaps everywhere, like with mindset, with behavior, in a personal level, in a building level, in your neighborhood, and then uh, getting the corporates involved as well. I think everyone wants to do good, and we just need to find these ways of bridging the gaps locally. And then like when billions of people bridge their gaps locally, like, can you imagine what happens globally? So there, I see this global vision with local actions. So that's the future for food as well. Like it's the future everywhere for the next steps in our human evolution. I see this happening in multiple places. And I think with food, that's particularly important because everyone consumes food. Everyone needs it. And the potential for this to scale and for this to solve our problems rapidly, it is there. That's the power of food. That's why I went into this direction, to find a way to spark change there, because it's so scalable.
Right. And living in a world where so many people are getting various ailments due to inactivity, how
Mhm.
important is being active and physical fitness to you? Also having, I would assume, an extremely busy schedule with the travel and all of the work.
Mhm.
How do you how do you manage to still stay active and make that a priority?
Right. For me, like to be physically active is very, very important, and not because it also keeps the shape of the body, but this is a side effect. It's good for the mind if it gives you like the hormones for you to make better decisions. As an innovator, you need to do good decisions, right? And to do good decisions, your physical balance needs to be in shape. So I mainly do physical exercise as I was always active, but I mainly do physical activity because it keeps the hormones balanced. It keeps the good molecules there that keep me motivated, because we need a lot of motivation to change the world, because it's difficult and it's against the status quo, and if you don't have molecules of good running in your blood, you are not getting that boost of motivation to move forward, because it gets hard sometimes. And that's a priority for me, like to have balanced nutrition, not going crazy or being very restrict about it, but finding the good in the chaos, like stretching, I love it. And doing yoga, like always when I waiting for my next flight, doing some stretches, like um even sitting in the flight, during the flight, just like stretching, having good posture, breathing, you know that all helps. You don't need to go crazy. It's all about the little things. It all lies in the little things that make you happy, that make a world a better place, because we are billions, and if everyone does a little bit, we go far.
That's amazing. Yeah. And can you tell us about a project or an initiative that you are currently working on that excites you and has the potential to make a significant impact, a positive impact on the food supply chain?
Right. So we just launched the DHL challenge with Thought for Food. This was a global initiative where we were looking for innovations in the food logistics space. And here we are treating food logistics like very broadly, because logistics involves everything. So it's from the field to the market, from the market to the consumer, from the consumer to the wasteland, and everything is logistics, to get the inputs to the farmer, to get the farmer's products into the market, to get, like packaging is involved in logistics. Transportation, it's obvious, but also um, tracking where your inputs are coming from, where your food is coming from, where your waste is going to. Like, to enable this circularity, we need to know what's happening along the process. So that's why I'm very fond of traceability, and like with data, we can make informed decisions and be more have better solutions that are really changing the game, because we cannot change what we don't know. And to have like more understanding of what's going on, it's really, really important. But also having sustainable packaging or less packaging, ways of transporting food more efficiently, with because you imagine, like, you have to refrigerate food for it to get from place to place, and that all involves costs, that all involves energy. And it's like food logistics, there is no ending. And if there is one thing that's important to say, it's that fortunately we produce enough food in the world. It's just a matter of getting this food to the people, like building more resilient transportation systems. That's why going local is very important. And like there's a lot of things there to rethink, to think again if it makes sense or not, or how it can be more efficient. And this challenge is it was first uh, the first initiative that DHL is helping us in the logistics space, and we are already discussing next steps for this too. And this is one of the exciting projects I'm working on. And next, we are also creating a regional hub for Thought for Food here in Brazil. So, accelerating processes for innovation here in the Southern Hemisphere, and also working on a documentary telling stories of women in the agri food space to to incentivize young women to work in agriculture, and by telling stories of successful people and in the food systems, not only people that are producing the food on the land, but people that are taking this food to the market, and investors in innovation, like people in all of these spaces of the food systems, and connecting these stories like in an engaging way. I think it's very important as well for people to understand the possibilities, and for farmers to be at the center of the stage as well, and for us to even have farmers in the future, because in most places it's not seen as a cool job or something that people want to pursue, and telling stories and changing this mindset, is very important too.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Even we went and spoke to quite a few farmers around Sri Lanka, and
Mhm.
pretty much every single one of them said that they don't want their kids to go into farming, and
Right.
that's that
And that's global. Can you imagine in a 50 years from now, like we're not going to have farmers anymore? It's
that's
yeah, it's that's huge, because it's not cool, and farming can be cool, and it's just a matter of changing this mindset too.
right. Yeah, and definitely we need to find ways to make it more lucrative as well. And
Exactly.
yeah, we'll see how these solutions come up. But you're working on some amazing things, which is really good to hear. And so finally, what would you like to say as a call to action for the listeners in terms of improving our food chain, food supply chain? What should they do?
First thing, First things first, the biggest problem here we have is food waste. So don't waste food. Is be more conscious when you buy food. Buy the food that you're going to eat, and look for brands that are using sustainable packaging. Because at the end of the day, consumers' actions count. Consumer choices are being tracked. We have huge power in our hands as consumers, and make conscious decisions. Meet your farmers. Go and meet where, like a place where they produce food. Go and meet these people. Cheer them. Go to the farmers market. I would say, because we are all at the end. What we are for in the food systems, we are all consumers. Everyone. And go and do that, and ask your government representatives what they are doing to make better food systems. We need to participate, we need to ask about these things. And if everyone does their part, is it's we are going to have a chain reaction, a ripple effect that can have huge proportions and impact.
That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for this.
Of course.